Recording through the headset. It has begun. I'm never sure until I review the playbacks if anything actually happened or if the filming actually happened. So it's always an interesting moment when I begin these. And what are these? These are episodes. What are the episodes of, you might ask? Well, I have a podcast. Let's do it. The podcast's name is Ride Along with Run Man. I am Run Man. Good morning. Actually, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, so it's it's a relatively upbeat time to be alive right now. I was going to get out around noon. This should be episode 23 of the podcast, so enjoy, and you're invited to just partake of this experience for whatever it is. In fact, to tie this into the subject matter that I do have for today, I have an actual thing to do today, and we'll begin running so that we can actually break this runcast wide open and start doing it. There we go. Okay. I want to be invitational with this podcast, and I'm always saying in this podcast, hey, ride along with me. Riding doesn't always mean running. It doesn't always mean anything, really. It just means, hopefully this is an encouraging source for people trying to get their stuff together, because that's what I'm trying to do. And one way that I try to do it is by committing to running better and better every day. And I have a goal in mind, and it's a completely obstreperous goal. And I'm daring to dream big, and I would encourage all of you to do that as well. But if you only do it for the laughs, if you only jump in for the laughs and ride along with me for the schadenfreude of knowing how I just push myself and how it's a struggle, and maybe it kind of makes things more comfortable in your life. I don't know why you would watch this podcast, but there's a lot of things that it does for me, and I hope that it does multiple things for you as well. It's not like I'm trying to do this to make the world a worse place. I want people to benefit from this. So hopefully this is doing something for you. You're invited to contemplate whatever that is. Well, and hell, if you don't get anything out of it and you do what I do, and you do your chores and you just have somebody on in the background because you find talking to be soothing, then that's awesome too. There's nothing wrong with that either. The reason why I said I was going to tie that in to what I want to talk about today is because I've probably said it before on the podcast, but it's not just that I love the band Tool, it's that I love the name of the band Tool. I don't know if the singer ever talked about it in his interviews or if anybody in the band has actually come forward, but one thing that I love about that band, the name of that band, is that it kind of is a reflection of the material that they espouse or that they put out. It's not just that they work in awkward time signatures, and it's not just that it's hard to dance to because it's complex and sometimes really heavy and tough to listen to without a strong emotional reaction, sometimes a negative one. But it's also that the lyrics themselves can be taken so many ways. The more salt you pour on that band, the better. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to take for granted that I know what they're talking about. I want to listen to this song in every mood. I want to listen to those words in every mood. Just like how I want to consider the name of the band, Tool, in every mood. Right now, this invitational spirit that I'm seized by is this sort of open-ended attitude, and it ties in because I'm going to talk about a song. We've been doing a bit of that recently, but before we even get into that, yeah, man, what is Tool? Well, in Dan Millman's modality, in his journey, he was talking through Socrates, a guy who probably existed, but who knows? And Socrates was always espousing meditation and attention and surrender, but meditation itself as both of the latter things that I just said. And meditation, he not anthropomorphized, but he drew a metaphor between your meditation practice and a blade and a sword, So you can sharpen it. And what is that but a tool? You can use it in so many different ways to modify your environment. And of course, when we're talking about internal introspective modalities, that can be you're hacking away bushes that are inside, keeping you away from a clear view that you want to come to within. You can remove obstacles externally with it as well. You know, you're knee deep in a jiu-jitsu match and it could go either way and your tech is a little sloppy, but then you just focus really, really hard and your practice comes to your avail because you've done it so many times, you've honed in so often to be present to the moment. You find the place, you remove the obstacle of the other person's frustrating or annoying posture, you win the match. You win the day. And you've grown because it was a challenge. Anyway, so it's kind of the same idea here. This podcast is just like meditation, is just like Tool, see? My mind is always doing that. It's always reaching for things that don't look like they're connected. And I'll just stretch and strain myself across the cosmos in my mind, driven by feeling. And I'll connect these dots, and I'll draw some quirky constellations. I do a lot of squiggling, do a lot of nighttime squiggling, except all hours of the day. It's tough to get focused sometimes. But that's the groundwork, right? So, a little bit of backdrop as well. I did it again. I'm running now, spur of the moment, and you might notice I'm not doing the usual track. This would be one of two ways that I begin what I call the fairly long circuit, or the middle long circuit, on top of which I can tack on what's essentially the usual route that you guys typically see a piece of, or this or that of, sometimes the whole thing. I haven't done a connected long circuit yet. I'm not going to do that today. I got things to do. But I did it again. I, spur of the moment, after spending all morning just buried in coffee and podcasts and relaxation, hadn't even made my bed because I was driven to just follow my instinct. My instinct said, dude, you've been working really hard for you. Let's find these moments and take them. I've got laundry that I've Ranger rolled about 3/4 of it. It's been around long enough where I added another pile of laundry to it. So like 5 days. I've just been slowly nibbling away at this laundry pile. I've put away some of it, haphazardly, I would add, because I was just chasing this instinct. So that's part of the backdrop. The second part of the backdrop was I was watching a little bit of Joe Rogan, talking to, might be the founder of MAPS. I'm not sure. Some psychedelic, psychonaut bigwig, explorer, educator, social policy changer, you know, from the small scale to the large scale, that kind of a person. I don't know how many of those people there actually are, but Joe was talking to one of these guys. I didn't catch his name. And all of a sudden, just because I like that kind of talk, any talk where you're talking about changing consciousness, changing your mind, learning something, growing, putting people together who can synergize and make beautiful things happen in the world for other people, particularly people who could really stand to benefit from one leg up, from one hug, one conversation, or let's say a small number of therapeutic sessions or contacts or whatever, you know? That kind of thing. That really inspires me. And I was really getting into it. And I was already in a really relaxed, easygoing position. So I was leaning toward, I'm not going to run today. And I feel no pressure step by step to continue unless I want to. As I said, I often do this where I'll just, oh my God, it's time to go. And I go. That's what I did just a moment ago. And it all came from this moment when Could have been the coffee, could have been the good breakfast, eggs, beans, and cheese, all fried up and seared up in a really good manner. Beans that I soaked, and red beans get weirdly big. I had forgotten that. They turned out pretty good. Got some spices in there. Anyway, it could have been any number of those things, or just all of them together. Might have happened anyway. Sometimes moments like what I'm talking about just happen. Actually, once I start noticing them, I start doing the thing where I start drawing connections like, oh yeah, this moment and that moment, there's a lot of these. There's a lot of these. And the phrase, staying up my spiral, would probably apply most well to the sort of broad terms and conditions that might, that might render such experiences incipient in a reliable way, or relatively anyway. It's like saying, oh yeah, I've got a tonic for inspiration, or I've got a practice for inspiration. But it wasn't even inspiration, see? It was just, well, let's talk around it before we say it. Because it was an experience, so it was difficult to speak on, right? Experiences are there to be lived. And when we talk about them, we produce these callow ghosts of what richness and life was actually there in the moment, now in the past, that we're grasping for. Well, I'm going to try to grasp for it a little bit and bring you with me, because this is a ride-along podcast, remember? I'm going to do it by going into the song that I was thinking of in that moment. And feeling. Sometimes the simplest statements can be the most profound. For example, one of my mentors once told me that her mission statement for life, essentially, if she really had to focus in on it, and she did, was I'm here to love and be loved deeply. That's a very simple statement. Wow. How do you get more basic than that? It kind of lays the groundwork for everything you do. If you live that way, or if you always come back to it, you point yourself at that star and you just keep rowing, you're gonna end up somewhere good. No matter what assails you, tide or piracy or whatever. Anyway, enough of these rich metaphors. We're talking about simple language. Simple, everyday language. So when I talk about Tool, and I talk about lyrics, and I talk about grains of salt you can give, and presumptions you can let go of, so as to take a more rich suite of benefits from the material, if that's what you want to do with it, or, whatever. Yeah, I kind of lost my thread there, but I know that I was coming to lyrics, and I was coming to particular lyrics in a particular song, which we do on the podcast quite a bit. I often get them wrong. Let's see if I can get these ones right. But first, let's home in and focus. The band is Tool. The album is Lateralis. The song is Lateralis. Lateralis, most of the song reminds me of surfing. It's pretty intense, and there's strong tidal imagery that happens when the chorus hits, and there's a pacing to it. It's hard to sing. It's another one of these things where lyrics are kind of repeated, but not completely, so it jars you. I'm not talking about the chorus right now, though. I do like the chorus. And at some point, maybe on this podcast, I don't know. But at some point, we might get into that song. Probably will, like at large. But I'm just looking at this one little bit. I guess you could call it a bridge. It's a break in the action, right? Near the middle of the song, kind of creeping up toward the end of the song a little bit, everything dies down. Remember, a couple episodes ago, I talked about how I really like that. After all this cacophony, you're just left with this empty chamber. There's just nothing happening. Except, what's his name? The bassist, Justin Chancellor, is still doing bass. He's providing us with a foundation, a rhythmic foundation, with his bass, which is good, because what happens next is tough. Danny Carey, the drummer, giant dude, always seems to be wearing basketball jerseys when he plays. Monster looking dude. Sounds very kind though. He just starts tip-tapping like a tap dancer on these hi-hats to a series of, I don't know if he's doing polyrhythms, I don't know what it is, but it's very hard to track. What he does with the drums in this sequence, very difficult to track. So I relax and I just listen. So we get a little bit of that going on, we get the bass. The regularity of the bass is playing off against the artistic chaos, but also very satisfying hi-hatting and eventual drumming, right? Adam Jones comes in with some familiar guitar work from earlier in the song, but in a softer way. They're taking their time, everything in its place, all tidy. They're really making you a serious sandwich. They're setting a stage. They got everything there, except Maynard. And then finally, Maynard does the same thing. He comes in soft. He comes in soft and measured and slow enough. It's one of the few times you can actually goddamn understand him when he sings. Like immediately. Usually after like 20 or 30 listens, I get a couple of lyrics right in Tool songs. But in this case, I think I caught it the first time. Are you ready for the lyrics? I'm going to use the lyrics to talk around and then into the moment that I had. That I'm still in, actually, believe it or not. Maybe you can hear it in the candor of my voice. I don't know. It's funny, I'm talking, even now, I'm talking faster than I thought that I would when I envisioned, as I was throwing my shoes on in a half stuporous fit of inspiration, not even knowing what I was doing really. I was thinking about how warm I felt and how good I felt. So with that, here's the lyrics. Whew. Come embrace my desire to. Embrace my desire to. He kind of half repeats it, see? And then we begin. You know, kind of properly. Embrace my desire to feel the rhythm. That's nice, huh? Let's continue. Feel connected enough to step aside and weep like a widow, to feel inspired, to fathom the power, to witness the beauty, to bathe in the fountain, to swing on a spiral, to swing on a spiral. Then the music is ramping up. To swing on. I think what he says here is to swing on a spiral, and he might be saying to swing on and spiral out. I'm not sure. I'm sure I looked it up actually, but I don't remember. To swing on a spiral of our divinity and still be a human. Now, how about that? Isn't that just a delightful little romp through simple language? You don't need to get all fancy with your petticoat and your caviar. All that you really need is some practice, a little bit of inspiration, a little luck. Remember, we talked about that weird, fun paradox, that tension between, oh yeah, I created this song, to, oh, there was something waiting to happen, and I kind of found it, and it kind of happened as I found it, and I kind of made it as I found it. Oh, I love that. I love inspiration. It's such a strange thing. I always choke up when the lyric "to feel inspired" happens. But that moment that I was talking around anyway, I will now explicitly and incisively put a pin on. See if you can't find me in these words. I was just listening to that podcast and I was thinking about this song, and yet I was also very quiet inside as well, and I was just very, very held and I was holding a mirror up, and I was really quite happy with what I was looking at, and I felt restful and wakeful, you know. I felt like a coiled spring that can just go if it wants to, but it doesn't need to. It's like a relaxed action potential, like a boulder on top of a cliff. If the earth wills it and gives me a little shake, then it's party time. In this moment, I was thinking of the Latter Atlas words, to feel connected, because I felt connected. And I'll hit you with another word too that's not in that little bit, but we might have touched on it earlier. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of clicking right now. Let me just see if I can't. Doesn't really help. Damn, that's okay. Oh yeah. Where was I anyway? Oh yeah, words, simple language. I felt dearly and very much beloved. Felt good. Because we had that one podcast like 5 episodes ago or 7 episodes ago or something, where I spent the entire podcast talking about Alice in Wonderland, preferences for emotional domains or attachments to emotional domains, and how one of my recurring cornerstones of emotional activity, reactivity, preferences, place where I dwell quite a bit, is in loneliness and in solitude. Because right now I'm doing a lot of processing of the loneliness that's not lonely, the emptiness, the lack of input that's not empty, and not lacking input. It's just that all the information that I'm getting socially and as a human being, a lot of it, more than ever, is coming from just myself. All of the regard, all this input, all this feedback, all this richness is occurring in this self-generating feeling infrastructure that just happens to be a little bit on the quiet side and happens to be easily undermined by the blunt instrument of wording and thinking and intellectualization. We've touched on that as well. Really, it's kind of nice to bring all this up in one go, right? It's special to just say in a moment, this really lonely dude, this guy who feels really out of place in the world, like I don't belong. Well, I feel like I belong. I feel like I want to belong. Even better, I'm not rejecting. Well, I hope everybody's okay. Those guys are going, man. Yeah, in this moment, in these moments that keep getting strung along and collecting and coagulating into a nice little soup. I'm getting this rhythm. I'm getting this message. I'm getting this connection from within. It's there in a lot of these moments when I feel like the first impulse that a person, well, me a year ago or me 2 years ago, would be reacting into and feeling into would be this feeling of bottoming out. Like, oh shit. Remember, well, you don't remember, deleted podcast episode, it would have been 19, I think. I replaced it with a shiny new 19. But I was kind of dryly and kind of introspectively nicknaming that episode WTF Am I Gonna Do podcast. Welcome to What Am I Gonna Do cast, you know? Like, what in the blue hell is left for me? What chance do I have? I feel like a snowball in hell. I don't know how to pivot or what to do or how to grow into this or how to respond instead of react. I feel like I keep coming up to this dead end, then the next dead end, and then I make a thing work miraculously and it only sets the stage for the next thing to get in my way. That kind of feeling. That's what I was feeling. And even then, I almost wish I hadn't deleted it because we still arrived at a good place. It wasn't the only reason why I took that episode out, actually. There was a few reasons. But I really set the stage for growth, and I really, the second half of that episode, which I'm quite happy that I can kind of summarize it and honor it without having to feel like I need to put it up there or put everything up there. The second half of that episode was all about like, okay, how are we going to choose the pivot? How are we going to align internally in the proper timing from a foundation that's going to allow me to stand up well and show up well for the changes that have to happen, where I can actually review my options and not get lost in the what am I going to do mantra, because people get lost there and then you know what they do? They settle. They bury themselves in the quiet death of internal mediocrity. No, I'm not going to reach for the skies and shoot my bow and fall among the stars, missing my mark, and it doesn't even matter. I'm just gonna hold myself up in a quiet life. No nonsense, no hassle. Put away my creative prospects, my hopes and my dreams. Look at the hard slates and ledgers of the day and allow the groupthink to dictate my course. None of us, I don't think a lot of people that I know do that only, but I think all of us, including myself, are tinged by it. We're tinged by that force. That self-deprecating, self-destructive, ultimately, inertia. That pushback against the really dangerous, chaotic, Ouroboros-like maelstrom of possibility that is within the human being, and it's a part of the equation. It's a part of the story. And you don't have to read to the end of the book. You don't have to get there if you don't want to, but the point of the podcast and the point of what I'm doing, the point of me expressing all these words is that's what I'm doing right now. And you get to see me doing it when I don't know it's going to work out okay. And I'm not already a champion. I'm not already a warrior. Yeah, the warrior is now, and I am living it while I'm talking about it. So, okay, momentarily I do feel the essence of the warrior. Having said that, I haven't done the end game. Having said that, I haven't worked out any of the logistics as to the final arc of this podcast. Whether it's 9 months from now, whether it's a year from now, whether I put it on the back burner and deal with money first and really get secure about things. Which, by the way, things look really good in that sector now. A lot of what the hell am I going to do cast was centered around I had not yet implemented my strategy to pivot out of the grocery store into another form of sweat equity, delivering food temporarily before reviewing other options in the long term, right? Just to put things in real, well, we talked about opaque, to put it in opaque terms, but point you at something, And so every day from then to now, actually even a little bit before then, but especially a couple of days after that to now, like, must have been a week since I deleted that episode. Well, it only took that long. I showed up so hard and so well, and I suspected I was going to. In fact, a part of the material of that episode was that I was doing it. I was just kind of waiting for the time delay. I was waiting for, not time delay, momentum to build. I saw numbers coming into my life. I was happy about that. But I was like, not feeling safe in it because I hadn't been doing it long enough to have received a rhythm for it. Now I've got a rhythm. Now I know that this thing can work. And I've made all these little adjustments. And they've all grown on each other and built on each other. Anyway, so that area of life is looking much better now. I don't need to know the answers. I don't need to be the champion right now. I don't need to be the guy that's run daily marathons for however long. I don't need to be the guy who knows. Who just knows. What was that adage? Those who speak don't know. Those who know don't speak. Boy, I've got to eventually replace this headset. This is too much. Some days it's not so loud, but today it's just like right in my eardrum. Click, click, click. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. It's all a part of things. Anyway, that is what I came to say. I feel connected and beloved from nothing with no purpose except simply to experience. Does that make any sense? If it doesn't make sense to you, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're having a hard time with my rate of speech, or the material, or my sailor mouth, Homer Simpson once referred to his language use as, "Oh, curse my trenchant mouth." How good is that?